Evil. Pure evil. I can feel it, eh?
I was raised in Belgium and sold into a murderous pedophile network right around my 6th birthday. I was used in this network for 5 years and a half. Adult men that were part of this exclusive club were there for various reasons, but there was a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, and the children were the commodity, the highest, the most valued commodity, and were used mostly. But there were a number of aristocrats that were part of this club who also liked killing children.
I just went down one of the biggest rabbit holes I have ever encountered in true crime. So I thought I'd bring that information right to you. All fairy tales start with a castle, right? But this castle we're going to discuss today does not involve a fairy tale, more like a nightmare tale. And I'm not sure what to believe because it's so far out there. Deep in the Ardennes forest in Belgium lies a castle that was used for some of the most horrific things I have ever heard of. So horrific that my naive mind has trouble even believing that something like this could even occur. This particular castle has been alleged to be a place of monarch training, orgies, and child sacrifice. Also, it is alleged that from this castle, elites would pay to play hunting games in which children were told to run into the dark forest and the rich would hunt them. This whole case involves around one particular monster who would take the blame for all of the elite. That monster would be pedophile killer Marc Dutroux. Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. This involves a little bit of everything. It's not called File Castle for nothing. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed. Just make sure you smash that subscribe button, that one down there, so you can find me again in this big YouTube world. We discuss rarely told true crime right here from my little she shed. So please help a nerdy Southern girl out and hit that subscribe button. This rabbit hole is so deep that I could never cover all the characters or places involved. It was a lot of information, and part of the information actually came from WikiLeaks. So thanks to Julian Assange, we know a little bit more about the information on this case. This case involves a huge pedo ring, several castles, and homes in which parties/orgies were thrown. It makes Diddy's freak-off party seem like a child's birthday party. Not even kidding. So buckle your seatbelt because this is going to be a rough ride. The first castle we are going to discuss was the center of the occult and has a cathedral with a dome containing 1,000 lights. The castle is referred to as the Mother of Darkness Castle. It was alleged that witches used to perform rituals inside of this castle, hence the name the Mother of Darkness. This castle is also known as the Castle of the Kings. Its real name is CHATEAU d'AMEROIS. From the outside, it is a heavily guarded but beautiful castle. But if the walls could speak, they would speak of absolute horrors that were seen inside this place in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. When the elites would arrive at this castle for this party, or the pink ballet as some called it, they would be charged really large entrance fee. They must then take off their clothes, but in some cases, they were permitted to wear swimwear. Each room would have a different theme. One room in the castle would have mirrors and cameras. Another had several mattresses just laying in the floor. Another room was said to have obstetric tables, chains, and handcuffs. The children were brought in cars that had German license plates on these cars, and they were given large amounts of alcohol. The children were then tortured, gamed, forced to perform bestiality, and sometimes even killed if the client paid a high enough price. It is alleged by one child that hunts were organized 2 to 3 times a year, not normal hunts. They hunted children. The hunts were generally organized during the official hunting season, so it looked like it's just normal hunting, which is usually in October and November, although they sometimes did it during the summer too. The children had to run into the woods, and the hunters tried to catch them. At the boundary of the area in which the children had to stay, there were guard dogs that were posted so no one could run away. If a child got caught, the child had to take off like one piece of clothing and then was hunted again. When the child was totally naked, the hunter who had paid for it could do whatever he wanted to this particular child, depending on the amount of money paid. Usually, 2, sometimes 3 children were killed during these hunts. It was indeed quite expensive to kill a child, and sometimes several hunters put money together, and the bodies had to be taken care of too, but they had a very well-organized logistic system to make these bodies disappear, according to this witness. And at the end of the hunts, there was a big party during which the remaining children, well, they got raped and abused. 15-year-old Belgian teen, Katrina Cooper, whose murder is still unsolved to this day, was alleged to be a possible victim inside one of these castle parties. On Tuesday, December 17, 1991, Katrina went to visit a friend in Antwerp. After the visit, her friend stayed behind and just let her walk home because, well, it was raining outside. She didn't want to go outside. She telephoned her parents at 11:30 to tell them she would just take the bus home. But she then missed the bus and was last seen at 11:45 at a bar where she actually made a phone call to an unknown person. On June 19, 1992, her naked, buried body was discovered during groundwork in the port of Antwerp. Investigations showed that she had been strangled. Regina Love would come forward and tell the police that she had seen Katrina be murdered in one of those hunt parties at a castle. And because this was such a wild story, she was not believed. It would be learned in 1999 that above the bar where Katrina made her phone call was a shady photo studio used for shoots, which was ran by Gary Ulrich, a known pedophile. During the police raid on Jerry Ulrich's home, photos were confiscated and there were photos found of a girl who looked very similar to Katrina. The pictures of all these children appeared to be during torture sessions. Regina only came forward as a witness after serial killer Marc Dutroux was arrested. Through Regina is how we would learn actually most of the information we know today. I won't go into the full details of Marc Dutroux, as most people know his story. Marc Dutroux held 6 girls prisoner in his basement dungeon between 1995 and 1996 and was only arrested after multiple tips and even a visit from the police. By that time, 4 of those children had been murdered. 2 were found alive. After his arrest, 20 potential witnesses connected with this case died in mysterious circumstances, fueling suspicions of a cover-up reaching the highest levels. Michelle Liliev, a drug addict and a petty theft, and also an accomplice to Marc, told police soon after his arrest that the girls had been kidnapped to order for someone else. The chief suspect was Jean-Michel Nohal, a Brussels businessman, pub owner, and familiar face at the castle sex parties. Regina told authorities that while she was at these parties, Marc had been there just working for Jean-Michel. Marc brought girls and drugs to the party at the request of Jean. She said while Jean was a party beast, Marc was more to the side.
In the years past, this castle in Vollentum in southern Belgium was the place where sex orgies were organized for rich and important people. There were 150 couples, which was immense, and everything was sealed off, so that minors and people, who had no business there, could not come in. The things happening there are the things that happen at sex orgies with adults. But there were no minors. and I certainly was not the one who had organized the whole thing.
Mark's other accomplice that helped actually find the girls was Bernard Weinstein, who Mark would later murder. He didn't want him to talk, so he actually murdered him and buried him near the site of 2 other girls that were found murdered by Mark. Regina was able to describe in detail another murder that she had witnessed at one of these parties, the murder of Christine Van Hees. According to Regina, 15-year-old Christine had met with Jean in October 1983 and somehow began a relationship with this fully grown child. After a while, Christine began to figure out that Jean was a pretty bad guy, but was afraid to speak about him to her parents. She feared that Jean and his friends might hurt her. She was getting scared. And she didn't want them to hurt her parents, too. Also, Jean had persuaded Christine to have sex with Regina and participate in orgies. According to Regina, Christine had been initiated to the PEDO network through a traumatizing ritual abuse ceremony. And that was just another form of their MARC programming. MARC programming is basically where you are hypnotized through traumatic abuse, like brainwashed through events that happen in your life. This actual ritual abuse ceremony included Regina, a 4 and 8-year-old boy, and a 10 or 11-year-old boy, and then Christina. The initiation resembled a satanic mass, which was held in the garage of a house. There were men with capes and masks, and the mistress dressed in leather, Regina would say, including a mask. And she commanded the men to torture or abuse these children in certain ways. The point was to just get the children so terrified that they wouldn't talk about any of this that occurred. Regina states that the abusers were not Satanists, but skillfully used the ritual to scare the children so they wouldn't talk and to gain total control over Christine. The climax of the event included a slaughter of a white rabbit over the belly of Regina, who she said she was strapped to the top of a table of spinning wheels with black leather. Christine was ordered to drink from a chalice with the rabbit blood, and then Christine promised that she owed lifelong loyalty to the group. Christine was allowed to leave while the other children were then abused after this party. Sometime after this, the pedo ring found out that Christine kept a diary, and they were afraid that she would talk. So the pedo ring knew what needed to be done. So on February 12, 1984, several children were taken to an old factory. 2 of those children were Regina and Christine. Regina said she was blindfolded and barefooted when she and Christine and the abusers stepped out of the car. After they entered this factory, the children's blindfolds were then taken off. And later, Regina was actually able to give an accurate account of the inside of this factory. I mean, it had been burnt down afterwards, so she wouldn't have been able to come and saw this factory in order to get an accurate account. She would have had to know what it looked like beforehand. Regina even stated that Christine's blood in her private area from the abuse was absorbed by a tampon. This tampon was later found near the factory. At some point during this party, Christine's legs and her hands and her throat were connected with the same rope. And so when she moved, the rope would strangle her. While laying tied up in this basement, the sick pedo set her on fire while she was still alive. Regina claimed that 2 of the men that had been there that night was Mark and Jean-Michel. Regina's account was very accurate in details, but the authorities just refused to believe her because it's so wild. So officially, Christine's murder is still considered unsolved. Regina said that when the children were no longer needed, they would all become part of a Snuff movie that was sold to the highest bidders.
Snuff movies, movies waarin kinderen echt vermoord worden, bestaan.
Zij bestaan, ja. Dat leidt geen twijfel. Ik heb ze gezien. Ze werden regelmatig afgedraaid tijdens feestjes. Ik heb ze gezien.
Ja, maar hoe gedragen mensen zich die naar een film kijken waarin een kind wordt vermoord?
Die mensen waren, laten we zeggen, die hadden het ook allemaal wel live meegemaakt als toeschouwer. De film was alleen in feite een stuk herhaling van wat ze in het echt hadden gezien. Zij reageerden daar eigenlijk heel cool op, gaven commentaar. Zij reageerden lacherig, plezant, amusant. Ja, een heel andere reactie dan dat je normaal eigenlijk zou verwachten van iemand die naar zo'n film kijkt. Maar kinderen waren geen kinderen meer. Hè. Dat waren experimenten, hè. Stukken vlees. En zo werd er ook naar gekeken. Terwijl dat de films draaiden, moesten wij natuurlijk dienen om laten we zeggen, als dessert. Ja.
Virginia was not the only witness to come forward. About 20 witnesses came forward telling of the horrors that they had endured in this pedo ring. One of the witnesses said Pedophile Bernard Weinstein sometimes walked around with snakes at these parties, which they actually used to rape the girls with. One young witness actually said that she heard the screams of those being hunted inside that forest. She was in the castle, actually. But from statements made by those around her, she concluded that the children that were screaming were being hunted. The woods around the castle was surrounded by a wall. She stated she heard screams of children, of they were about 10 years old. She thinks there were 4 or 5 children. The screams stopped all of a sudden, she says. She never saw the children. The screams were horrible and undescribable. This next testimony from a witness is very upsetting and graphic. Because of this, I decided to put a timestamp that you can skip if you prefer. Not like the other stuff wasn't graphic enough that I went through, but this is even worse. So timestamp added if you want to skip. According to a witness on June 2nd, 1997, her and other children were brought by a car to a castle surrounded by a park. They were led through an underground tunnel to a secret cellar. In the cellars, there were cells where the children were actually locked up, awaiting their turn. There were also some cells for the dogs, who were Dobermans. The girl said as they walked through a tower in this castle, she actually witnessed dead children's bodies in various stages of decomp, sometimes dismembered and or missing body parts. There was also carcasses of dogs. She was brought to a room that she refers to as the spectacle room, and there she witnessed some horrific sights. Dogs were given drugs and made to do disgusting things to these children. One boy around 12 was castrated by these monsters and left to die, as the other children were forced to drink his blood. Girls' private areas were slashed by razor blades, and the outer areas were cut off and fed to the dogs. She said dogs and children were killed at that party as the elite watched the show. Another witness testified that she was made to kill another child with a knife. This child was 3 to 5 years old of age, and then she was forced to feed parts of this child to the dogs. There are accounts even more horrific than this that I could just not make myself keep researching through. I didn't want to read it. It was just too disturbing. My husband is like, "What's wrong with you?" It's like, I've been going through some horrible research, and I think I'm going to have to rest my mind for a while. And I actually had to rest my mind for 2 days because after I did read a little bit of it, I couldn't get it out of my head. It was just awful. And so I'm not going to put you through any of that because it was just so awful. It was unbelievable, if that makes sense. It was just nauseating and seemed so far out there that you wonder, could people really be this cruel? Is this world full of sick individuals that feed off each other like this? Do pedo rings like this really exist? And are the elite so rich that they can hide things like this that are so horrific? Even Marc Dutroux stated after his arrest that there is a well-grounded pedo ring and that he maintained regular contact with people within this ring. However, the law does not want to investigate this lead, he said. Michel Nahal testified after he was initially charged, saying the case would never go to court because he had information about important people in Belgium who could bring down the whole government. The WikiLeaks documents to show payments of hundreds of thousands of francs to Michelle Martin, who is Marc Dutroux' wife at the time, and to Dutroux' private bank account. Marc Dutroux was an electrician living on Social Security benefits at the time of his crimes, but he still owned 10 houses and had lots of money in his accounts. How did he get this on Social Security benefits? Unless he was involved in a ring. What else would explain all this money? The investigation also resulted in many unusual deaths related to the scandal. These included the judge, police officers, and even the chief prosecutor in charge of this case. After Marc's arrest, 20 witnesses linked to the case died in just mysterious circumstances. Dutroux would not go to trial until 2004, nearly 8 years after his original arrest, where he asserted that he was a low-level functionary in an extensive child trafficking network, with Jean-Michel Nahal being responsible for directing his kidnappings. Dutroux would be sentenced to life in prison, the maximum possible sentence for his crimes. Michel Nahal, on the other hand, was acquitted of any involvement in child trafficking and instead sentenced to 5 years in prison for conspiracy and drug trafficking, but he only served merely 2 years of that sentence. Marc Dutroux took all the blame of the murders and abuse of these children, and the rest got off, scot-free, if you believe this pedo ring exists. Chateau des AMEROIS is heavily guarded to this day and has a fence with cameras attached all around it. There are hardly any pictures that can be found at this castle, and the Sauvé family that own it refuse to let anyone explore it. So for now, the Mother of Darkness castle sits among a foggy forest and remains a mystery that not even conspiracy theorists have been able to resolve. We may never know if children were truly hunted in the Ardennes forest that surrounds this castle. But if you enter this forest today, you may hear the haunting screams of these children. That's the end of my dark subject for the day. And I'm so happy I don't have to research that again. And there is so much more I could have researched. This case you could research it for probably years online and never really truly get to the end of the rabbit hole. It just goes so deep, and places, I'd rather not go if I don't have to. And on that note, to brighten you guys up, I may show a video of my Christmas decorations because I just can't leave y'all depressed, and take you in and show you my little doggies so they can tell you bye. Because they obviously left me for some reason. They didn't want to hear this dark subject either. I will end it by saying I love you guys, and I hope if you're new at The Murder She Should, you'll come back and see me. I appreciate, you guys don't know how much I appreciate you guys. When I started my channel about 2 years ago, I thought I might get 5 people that would want to listen to me rattle on about, cases. And here I am, fixing to hit 15,000, and I'm actually totally shocked. I know that's not like millions like a lot of people got, but hey, I'm shocked that I got 15,000, and I appreciate of each and every one of you that come back and so supportive of my Murder She Should. You comment and you hit the like button and you subscribe, and that means a lot to me. It really does, guys. I love y'all. Have a great day, and I'll end it on a positive note. Okay, here's my Christmas tree. My husband's a taxidermist. You're going to see dead animals in here. Why does it look so dark? Simon and Max whining like babies. Matt Buddy laying there. My table. I built this table, by the way. I do build tables. I built this table. My brother helped me with this one because it's so big. Built this table. I built this table. I'm on the process of building a new table, which I'm going to put in my new upstairs movie theater. This is a side note. I'm supposed to be showing you Christmas, but I like to build tables. I know that's strange. And then outside, I have a little area that I got fixed up. The leaves have blown in, and I got a Christmas tree out here too. Yeah. Take you upstairs to my new movie theater. Pretty proud of this. If most people, if they know that we lost our house, we lost our house to a tornado, a couple of years ago now, I guess. Was it a couple of years ago? I don't know. Anyway, lost the house and we had to rebuild, and this is our rebuild. I'm making my dogs wipe their feet before they come in my new carpet. But here's our new movie theater room, which my husband, he got all these speakers and put in here. We just now got this built. Not finished, not decorated, but we got it all built and we enjoyed it last night. We just got our couch yesterday. So I just got to decorate it, and then we're finally done building our whole new house. Anyway, love you guys. Bye.